Just checking in. Sorry to keep bringing up the subject. I don't keep bringing up the subject to hurt anybody's feelings or to make anybody in a constant state of betrayal or feeling of mistrust. I bring it up because I want all of my people to be free. Truly. All of my people. That means all of my Irish people, all of my Native American people, all of my French people. We got a problem here in Canada, and that is that the world is getting money from Justin Trudeau. Now, we just experienced a very devastating public display that showed Canadians truly how the government thinks about its people and what their future plans are for the population, present population of Canada. Number one, we have a housing crisis because we have X amount of houses for Canadian people. We have enough houses to house Canadian people. But then since Trudeau took office, he's probably brought in 6 or 7 million more people, which compounded the housing crisis. So while everybody shut their border crossings, their illegal border crossings, tightened the noose on immigration, Justin Trudeau left the Quebec border wide open. Because every illegal refugee that signs up to be a legal refugee becomes a voter. He's stacking the deck. He's bringing in more immigrants than the legitimate original population of Canada. Therefore, when he comes in with a foreign ideal and pushes things on Canadian people that we don't agree with, like a dictator, he wins. Because we as Canadians vote against it, and all of the people he brought in vote for it. They are the 60%, we are the 40%. So we are outnumbered already. He stacked the deck. Number one, housing crisis compounded by the Liberal Party of Canada. Number two, he's standing up in front of the world telling everybody that he's behind truth and reconciliation and coming to terms with resolution with all of our people, Native American people. But then he goes to Germany, and on a hot mic he's caught saying, I want to stop out nativism, I want to stop out corruption, I want to stop out capitalism. And I really like the idea of China's dictatorship and how it works, where they can just do what they want and get it done. Wow. He said that. He did. Stomp it out. So, while standing up in front of the world on TV telling everybody that he is behind truth and reconciliation and coming to resolution with our people, he's going to foreign countries and saying, to hell with Canadians, to hell with Native Americans. This is a fact shown by 3 European Union members from different NATO countries who accept money from Justin Trudeau in regard to military benefit or assistance or food, grain, and gas deals. Now, Germany, Hungary, and Austria were a little bit pissed off at Justin Trudeau because of the Nord Stream blast and not getting their energy and prices going up and food disappearing. They were mad, and they came right out and they said this. This is criminal. Truly. These leaders of these 3 foreign nations came out and said, Mr. Trudeau, this organization is designed to protect human rights, the rule of law, the safety, security, and preservation of Indigenous peoples, recognition of historical and inherent right. And Mr. Trudeau, you as the Prime Minister of Canada are committing all of the same offenses against the Canadian people. Maybe if you don't want to help us and give us the money we want, maybe, Mr. Trudeau, your presence isn't welcome in this room because you are a dictator, a human rights violator, and everything. She sits down. Second leader comes up, says the same thing. Mr. Dictator Trudeau, committing human rights violations against the people of Canada on a regular basis, annihilating our army so we are defenseless, trying to make a law to take all of our guns away. He is setting himself up, legalizing cocaine and heroin in British Columbia, Jagmeet Singh's district. The Canadian people are hurt. Canadian people didn't ask for this. These politicians are not even talking to the Canadian people. These politicians are going home and scratching their head and saying, hey! And then they come to the Parliament, House of Parliament, they go in and they say, the Canadian people want. Nobody's ever talked to us. Nobody's given us an opinion poll. You know, where do they get this census poll from, these polls? You know, the incident happens and 25 minutes later, Ipsos poll says Canadians by 70% are. You never talked to a single person. You went to a chart that was created in the 1920s. And that's a fact. You're using false numbers. So these 3 foreign countries came forward and they said, Mr. Trudeau, if you don't want to give weapons, you don't want to give money, you don't want to participate and assist in the level of everybody else, you're so busy going around pointing fingers at other countries for their abuses, while Canada is continually committing human rights abuses, land theft, abuse of its Indigenous peoples, everything. All the time, still to this day, that Canada still has the world's longest running prisoner of war camp in cooperation with the United States, known as, today, called Native American reservations. When it was first started, and they finally put Geronimo into one, he died with a broken heart, saying, I never should have stopped fighting. I knew they would never let my people out. And he was talking about the prisoner of war camps, the reservations, being put aside and told, all of this land is still yours. We just want you to stay in this section of the reservation, on the reservation, so that we don't have any more conflict or war with Europeans while they're passing through your country to go to the West. Okay. Whatever, same story in California and the other places, but to go to a different place. So, our grandfathers put down their guns, peacefully walked into these reservations, and have been nothing but stolen from, abused, neglected, unheard, invisible. Tactically and methodically thought out plans of destruction, misuse, and theft against our people by professional government officials who are paid to specifically look for ways to shut us down, cut us out, and make Native American Canadians disappear so that Canadians are people of all races. This is not right. One, the policy is not right. Two, the ignorance and neglect and everything else is not right. There was oil sheen in the water in northern Ontario for 25 years that they claim. And they complained to Ottawa, we need somebody to come up and deal with our reservoir. We have constant oil in our water. Oh, well, we'll put you on a boil water advisory. We'll send one up there. Years go by. 25 years go by. Finally, somebody goes up. The reservoir is drained. The government fixes the pumps. They come back and they say, yeah, the mineral oil was coming from a leaky seal in a pump. It wasn't actually contaminating the water. It was harmless mineral oil. It was coming from a valve in a pump, and it only took us 25 years to come up to this desolate, far away northern reservation and fix this. It only took us 25 years. Really. Hundreds of billions of dollars put into housing for our people, and because our leaders have lived a life of poverty and distress, our leaders are stealing the money. If they're not stealing the money, they're putting 100% of it into the tribal council's bank account and saying nobody gets nothing except me. I'm going to go buy a new truck and a new house. Maybe next year, if you get elected, you can. That's not how it works. When you're given $50 billion to lift your people out of poverty, it doesn't mean put the $50 billion in your bank. It means there's 20,000 people, $50 billion, $3 million per person given to them, $1.5 million per person kept back by the organization to provide services. Instead, the Métis Nation is keeping 100% of the money, $4.5 million per person. I need therapy for brain damage. It's only a couple $1,000s for the continuation and finishing of my programs. I can't get any help. We paid for the diagnosis. Sorry, sir, you're on your own. You're going to have to find another way. Yes, we got $500 million to help you guys buy houses, but unless you got your own money to put a down payment on a house, we're not going to help you. We're going to take your money, buy apartment buildings, and then we're going to use the apartment buildings we bought with your money. We're going to call them native housing and rent them to you, and you'll pay us rent, and you'll be happy that you don't own a house, that we took your money and bought apartments and rented to them cheap to you. You'll be happy we did that instead of giving you your bursary for a home purchase. What? Nobody talked to the Métis Nation people about this. Nobody asked us if we wanted to buy old Ontario housing units. That's another thing. Old, dilapidated Ontario housing units, and call them native housing. You might as well be building new reservations. No, you are. Except they're in town. And they're in a complex like Ontario housing. You're still isolating, segregating, and separating. Divide and conquer. Somehow, every person with a single drop of Native American blood in them in Canada, every person who is in any way, shape, or form in the favor of our freedom and solidarity, of the return of our nation to our people, to allow us to be our own land curators or stewards. And just hundreds of billions of acres, hectares, out there that are just sitting bush. Why are we not being allowed to go back to our land and live? Why? How can three different NATO nations come forward and say that everybody in Canada is a victim of Justin Trudeau's human rights abuses and has been so for the last 7 years? So if you don't give us the money we want, we're going to expose you. Huh? You see right there, that's NATO. Justin Trudeau, if you don't give us money, we're going to tell the world about what you're doing to your people. Okay, here's the money. Shut up. Zelensky, Justin Trudeau, you better give me the money or I'm going to tell the world what you're doing to your people. Here's the money. Shut up. This is all played out in public. So the biggest problem right now on the world stage isn't the Ukrainian war. That's a money laundering system for Trudeau and a headache for Putin, because Putin wants the war over. Zelensky wants to be a dictator, and so does Trudeau. Trudeau is paying his own private army, the Wolverines, to fight the war. So the money he takes from us to put into Ukraine goes back into his business. You see, it's a money circle. That's what's going on. It's not a war. It's a war of attrition for finance. What's happening in Canada? It's known around the world that the government of Canada is trying to steal all the Native American land. It's known around the world that the government of Canada causes harm to its Indigenous people. Or when other people cause us harm, they do not address it in a way to stop it. Our population is being decimated. Our people being segregated. New names, new bands, new tribes all the time. You're going to be something else, you're going to be something else, you're going to be something else. How is there 700 different tribes, bands in Canada? 700 different tribes, bands, councils. In Ontario, 645, something like that. But there's only 3 nations. Ojibwe, Cree, and Mohawk. Iroquois. Before that, the Inuit were so far north, they were north of Churchill, James Bay, far past the northern Quebec. But because of global warming, they moved far south. Farther south than Baffin Island. Never been that south before. And then Justin Trudeau comes along and says, the Northwest Passage is opening. So I'm going to go and give all the land to the Inuit as long as they agree to give me the entire shoreline of the Northwest Passage so that I can build a shipping system for my Quebec oil on the edge of the Northwest Passage as soon as it opens. I'm not going to have an election, fuck it. That's what he's doing. The worst part, though, is the world came forward and said, NATO knows that Canada is abusing its Indigenous and immigrated peoples. The world knows of Canada's human rights abuses and crimes. And NATO and the European Union openly, in public, on television, blackmailed Justin Trudeau by saying, we should be going after you for your human rights abuses because we all know about them. You're lucky we're not. You don't deserve a seat in this room. So if you don't give us a bunch of money, you're going, and we'll address you. Well, here's a whole bunch of money. Well, thank you. Now go back to Canada and continue your human rights abuses. That's what NATO and the European Union just said. So what are you going to do about it?